TBN presents Christian Celebrity Showcase, featuring interviews with your favorite stars.
You don't have to compromise what you believe to find success. It's true.
The opportunity to just kind of see behind the scenes how sad, lonely, broken some of these people are.
Anything I've accomplished in my life has been by the grace of God and the gifts He's given me. I try to take claim for none of it.
Upon graduating from the University of Southern California, this Oakland native had plenty of Hollywood internships under his belt. By 30, the Columbia Pictures executive had worked with Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith in the blockbuster hit The Karate Kid, and had teamed up with Bishop T.D. Jakes for the recently released film Jumping the Broom. Today, he shares how one's faith can propel anyone to the career of their dreams through his book, Produced by Faith. Here's Dewey Friedel with Vice President of Production for Columbia Pictures, Devon Franklin.
Yes.
Devon, tell us about your testimony. Probably a lot of people think, how do you make the jump to Hollywood the way you've done? And you've been on so many shows and so many awards. How did this start?
You know, it started, when I was young. At a very early age, my father passed away. At the age of 36, he died of a heart attack when I was 9. And so, growing up, Mom, didn't really have money for us to really get counseling. So going to church and watching films were my way of therapy and kind of deal with this tragedy that I had faced. And so early on, going through that tragedy, I was always enamored by how do you make those images that I see on the screen? Hollywood really caught my attention. But being a Christian, people said, oh, you can't go into Hollywood and be a Christian. And I would look at them and I would say, listen, I respect your point of view because it's coming from a place of love. But have you worked a day in Hollywood? And the answer to that question was no. So I said, I respect what you're saying, but I got to go where I believe God is calling me. And I can't let, amen. And I can't let someone's point of view on what God is doing in my life impact me, because some people mean well, but because they don't have the vision God has given you, they might give you the wrong information.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So good. People are so fearful. When you look back at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, look where they were taught.
Absolutely.
In Babylon.
In Babylon.
And if we can make it in Babylon,
come on now,
we can make it in New York City.
So you make it in Hollywood.
Yeah, make it in Hollywood. And that's what you're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, and I'm so glad you bring up that example. And Daniel, we sometimes, as Christians, and we mean well.
Yes.
But we operate from a position of fear.
Yeah.
The Lord did not give us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. Right? So who am I, when God is on my side, to be afraid of an industry?
Yes.
Or a man-made entity? No, I have to go where God is calling me and go in faith, go in power, and go knowing and having the confidence that He's on my side. I wish that more of us would do that.
Yeah.
And stop operating in fear.
Well, with everything you've accomplished so far, all the fruit that's come out of Hollywood that you've done, if something were going to happen to your head, and it would have happened before, you've already been successful. Now you're climbing even higher in success. So it's not a case of Hollywood taking over. Maybe it's you're taking over Hollywood.
Oh, no. I am like so many others out there around the world. I'm in the middle of a career journey. I'm believing and praying God will continue to guide my steps. I'm not at the top of the mountain. I have a long way to go. So I'm like so many other people, trying to figure out, okay, God, where are you? Trying to struggle in this career, trying to make the best of what I have, and hoping and praying, for the best. I mean, for me, I really want people to get this idea and this message. People look at me and they say, oh, you've made it. And I say, well, I haven't made it, but here's what I do know. You don't have to compromise what you believe to find success. It's true.
Good.
It's true.
It's
true. Amen. And that has been such a vital part of the little success I've experienced so far in Hollywood is not compromising, understanding who God has made me, feeling confident in that and comfortable in that, and knowing that who He has made me is good enough. Not wanting to be someone else, not trying to emulate another person, but really feeling confident that the person that looks back at me in the mirror is the person that I'm okay with because God made that person.
In your book, you go through some of this.
Yes.
Produced by Faith. What would be the main element of that book that you want to get across to people? So many salient chapters in there, but
Yeah.
What's that main thrust you'd
Well,
want to hear?
that's why I was so excited to be able to write the book, because so many people say, well, Devon, how do you, find success? How do you make it? And I say, okay, you want to know the real answer? How strong is your faith? Where's God in your career pursuit? When was the last time you prayed, Lord, I want your will more than I want this job I'm pursuing, more than I want this career I'm pursuing?
Yeah.
That's why I wrote the book, Produced by Faith. Enjoy real success without losing your true self. And in the book, people ask me all the time, well, how does Hollywood work? Well, in the book, I describe how Hollywood works, because in the book, the reader's life is the movie. And every process that we go through to make films, from development to production in Hollywood, I use that as a metaphor to show the reader what God is doing in their life from development into production. We all want to get in production. We all want to go to the next level. But sometimes God says, no, you're not ready. There's more development you have to do. I got to work on your character. I got to work on your integrity. I got to work on your patience, all right? I got to work on your attitude, okay? and we get impatient, though. We're like, no, I want to make it tomorrow. No, Lord, we pray for one day, and then we think God's supposed to bless us. We're supposed to let him do his perfect work in us, which requires patience and to go through development. Why? Because God is not so much concerned about where we end up. And here's what I mean. He's much more concerned about who we're becoming. And we're focused on, oh, I want to get there and get there. But the book is about letting God develop us and develop our life and our career to what he wants it to be. And when he's ready for us to go into production, watch out, because can't nobody stop it, all right?
Now, you mentioned in the book the hell stage.
Oh, yeah.
Going through this hell stage. Now, there may be a lot of people watching tonight saying, I'm going through hell.
Yes.
Tell us, how do we get through that stage?
There's a chapter in the book called Development Hell. And in the movie business, there is this idea called development hell. What happens in development hell is this. I will have a script that I will have purchased, and I believed in the idea. But years after working and working and working, we get in development hell, where it looks like this idea will never get made. And in development hell, we begin to question, was it a good idea in the first place? Should we have bought this script in the first place? You know what? I don't think this will ever happen. And in development hell, there's this idea called turnaround. Studios will take scripts they don't believe in. They'll put them in turnaround. That means they will let any other studio in town buy the script as long as they pay them the money. A lot of us go through these times of development hell, where we start to question, are we good enough? We start becoming insecure. We start lacking the confidence we should have. And we doubt if we really have what it takes. And there's a tendency in development hell, when we go through these crazy, intense periods, to not only give up on God, but to no longer believe that we can do what he has called us to do. In development hell, here's what we have to do. Remember I talked to you about this idea about turnaround?
Yes.
Well, some of the greatest blockbusters in the movie business were put in turnaround. The Twilight franchise?
Yes.
Paramount put that movie in turnaround. Another studio picked it up, and now it has become one of the biggest franchises ever. Why do I say that? Two reasons. One, when we go through development hell, we cannot put our dreams in turnaround. Don't do it. Don't give up on God. Just because we're in that one moment, it's only that. It's only one scene in our life. Don't give up hope. The other thing, some people may have, your company may have downsized you. Your organization may have put you in turnaround. It's okay. God already has another company, another organization that's going to pick you up out of turnaround and set you up. And where you get set up will actually be a better environment for you to get to your purpose than where you were, because that was holding you back.
That's so good. Devon, how do you practically help people that may be in between? What I mean is this. You have like a Sylvester Stallone that wrote Rocky, and then he wanted to do the acting, he wanted to do the directing, and they said never. And then finally they offered him some money for the script, and he said, no, won't do the movie without this, this, and that. Now, some people may be made for that, like Stallone was for the acting. How about somebody else that, how do you know the difference? Is that?
Right. I think part of what knowing the difference is twofold. One part of it sometimes is we want to do everything all at once. You know, we have all these passions, we have all these dreams, we have all these desires, and so we start doing everything. Instead of saying, okay, Lord, what is the number one thing that you want me to do? and then focusing on that passion, becoming proficient in that passion. And then once we become successful, it will be the avenue to which all the other passions can be realized. So that's one of the things.
So I see somebody might start with, okay, I'll take this
That's right.
$100,000 and I'm
That's
still
right.
going to have another dream after this.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. I mean, that's an idea I talk about in the book. You know, at the end of the book, the last chapter is you, the sequel.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
So you've done it. You've done what you were called to do. You've done what you set out to do. Now what's next?
Yeah.
Now you have to trust God to do the next chapter in your life, to do the next sequel. The reason why we make sequels in Hollywood is because the first one was a success.
Yes.
So how blessed it will be when we get to that next sequel in our life,
Yeah.
and God does a whole new thing in our situation.
Yes.
He's a veteran stuntman with over 50 Hollywood films and television shows to his credit, such as Independence Day, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Columbiana, and Green Lantern. Before entering the stunt business, he started his career as a stand-in and has since doubled for many actors, including Mark Wahlberg, Robert De Niro, Christian Slater, and Charlie Sheen. Next, Phil Muncie welcomes stuntman Eddie Matthews.
I want to hear some juicy names of people that you've worked with.
I've doubled Robert De Niro.
Ooh, come on.
Richard Gere,
You're talking to me,
Matthew
yeah,
Broderick, and I doubled Chris Farley in a couple movies doing his gymnastic stuff. And
Oh, wow.
Before he died, and he was a good guy, physical guy, you know, but had his challenges. And but Christian Slater, Charlie Sheen.
Oh,
and,
yeah. Winner, come on.
Yeah. And
Well, any stories that come to mind when you think about like Charlie Sheen and different things? Anything that would happen that our viewers?
I
would
doubled
be...
him years ago, and he was going through some of his challenges then, and his dad was on the movie, Martin, and so he was, you know, he was a little bit upset over some of the things Charlie was doing. But anyway, so I had a chance to talk to him, and we were talking about God and Jesus, and he was kind of a, you know, I think he's a liberal, kind of Jesuit, Catholic type thing, and so I was, you know, we were going back and forth about what Jesus was and God, what is God, and, you know, what, and you know, he was saying Jesus was a pacifist, you know, he wouldn't be into war, and, you know, and I said, bottom line at the end of it, I said, you know, Martin, it's between you and God. It's a relationship between you and God, no one else.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And but long story short, he said, you know, I knew some stunt guys on Apocalypse Now that jumped off a table this high and broke their ankles. And I said, yeah, it doesn't take very much. I said, you can fall, you know, hit your head right here, you know, fall off this and it could kill you. And so we go to do a scene. He's coming in the room to shoot me. I'm playing myself, and we're in a kitchen. All these buckets are piled up. I said, Martin, when you shoot me, I'm going to go hit these buckets. They're going to fly all over, so be careful when you go run out. Boom, he comes in, shoots me. I hit the buckets. I fall down dead. I'm kind of looking out of the corner of my eye like I do when I'm dead all the time. And I see him go running by. His foot hits a bucket, and his legs go straight up in the air. He comes down on the back of his head. It sounded like a bowling ball hitting concrete. And I'm like, we just talked about this. I said, he's dead. I said, we just, you know, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, you know, it happened just like that. So anyway, they shut down production for a couple hours, and he kind of gets it together, and we start to do the scene again. And so he walks up to me and goes, hey, he says, hey, I'm a Christian. Praise God. So I worked on We Were Soldiers with Mel Gibson and with him on a couple other things, conspiracy theory, but on We Were Soldiers, the guy who did Braveheart, directed Braveheart, Randall Wallace, wrote We Were Soldiers, and he's a Christian man. So every day out in the field with Mel and everyone, Randall Wallace would all, you know, we're in our military uniforms, everyone, hold hands, and we'd pray every day out in the field before we'd go into battle.
Yeah, you know, I think people have to understand that, you know, if a person's a farmer, or he's a carpet layer, or he's a painter, that not necessarily everything you do directly is ministry. And people have to recognize that movies and entertainment are all part of what makes our lives full. And it doesn't always have to be message-based, but our lives on a daily basis. Like, you know, these stories show that you know, every day, no matter what we're doing, we can connect the dots. We can have impact. That every day there's an opportunity to shed a little light, to get a little Jesus, to make that God connection with people. Yeah, that's amazing.
Being an example on a set, you know, more
Yeah.
than preaching to anybody, because in Hollywood, it's, you know, it's a liberal place. And,
Yeah.
And you gotta have wisdom.
What's the perception that you think is different that you see that maybe most people would have?
Well, I don't know. God's blessed me with being able to see behind the scenes that
Yeah.
the sad, lonely, broken lives of these people. I mean, you know, everyone perceives them as, you know, idolizes these people.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can see the Charlie Sheens and people that are dealing with their stuff.
Yeah.
And nowadays you see kind of the you know, stuff people are going through. But, you know, I've been blessed with the opportunity to just kind of see behind the
Yeah.
scenes how sad, lonely, broken some of these people are without God.
Yeah.
You know, there's a few that, you know,
Yeah.
have God in their lives, but the ones that don't, it's just, you know, they can build a little wall empire up around themselves with their money and fame, and
Yeah.
everybody says yes to them, but you know they're just broken
see it.
people, and until they
see
get
it.
Jesus, it's
Yeah. Well, that just builds your faith, because a lot of people, I think, when, especially young people, very impressionable, but all of us, I mean, the People magazines, the Inquirer all of these things show we all have an appetite. Our ego is
yes,
constantly either wanting to be recognized or celebrate.
Yes.
And I think people fail to recognize that in spite of the fame, in spite of all that, you're right there, you're seeing. It must build your faith in Christ, because you actually see the real deal behind all of that.
Yeah, and you know, I have a heart for kids, and I talk in schools and different places, and they'll say, "Oh, I can't believe you met that person," and I'm like, you know, it kind of hurts me, it grieves me to think that they think if they could meet that person, it could change their lives, and I tell them,
Yeah.
you know what? Meeting that person doesn't do anything for you. You know, you
Yeah.
want to meet someone, you got to meet Jesus. That
yeah.
can change your life.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
you can meet those people and hang out with them all day long, and it's not going to change, impact your life for the better. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Her career started in Dallas, Texas at age 3, where she was spotted by Kim Dawson Modeling Agency and placed into a fashion show. At age 15, she headed to New York and soon discovered a passion for acting. After thousands of rejections, she eventually landed her big break as Maggie O'Connell in the CBS hit TV show Northern Exposure. Join Carmen as he talks to actress and model Janine Turner.
When you first started off in acting, you didn't start off as an actress. You started off, where'd you start?
Well, when
started
I was
off in Texas,
in
though, right?
3, I started modeling when I was 3 here in Texas.
Is it modeling? Is that typically the way somebody starts off?
I guess so. Well, dancing, modeling. I danced and modeled, and then I moved to New York City at 15 and modeled there.
Isn't that kind of dangerous when you're 15?
Yeah, it was a little young.
Yeah.
It was definitely a little young. But my mother was with me. My father was a pilot, so he was based back and forth. But what my parents said to me is I'd made some money as a model when I was young, when I was 3. They said, okay, you can go to New York, because I really wanted to go. But when you run out of money and you're going to pay for your own apartment, you're going to pay for your own school, and when you run out of money, you have to come home. So at a very young age, I learned how to be, you know, responsible for my money. And then the stressors of being in New York City at that age. I mean, it's just, it seems glamorous, but there are really so many no's. I give speeches around the country about hearing 10,000 no's.
Yeah.
You know, it's just sort of 4 or 5 auditions a day, sort of like a work audition. You know, and
That
then
is
you
the-
don't get it, you don't get it, you don't get it, you don't get it.
Typically, if you're a working actress, you have to go out on. Is there like an average of how many auditions you have to go on before you really get a part? There's some sort of an average, isn't
Well,
there?
there is. I mean, when I moved to New York City, they said you'll have 50 interviews, commercial interviews, say for Jack in the Box or Burger King, whatever, before you'll book one. And it was just about 50. It took me a year of auditioning about 4 times a day before I booked my first commercial.
So that's like 50 times you go out there, and 50 times people go, no.
Yeah,
no."
exactly. And when it's modeling, it's the worst, because they're just looking at photos, going, next.
Do they tell you what they don't like? Or they just say
They
no?
usually don't even look you in the eye.
Ouch.
Usually they don't look in the eye. And, you know, and I would have people look at the books and, you know, say, too bad.
Is it?
I was like, what does too bad mean?
Is that? Is that what makes like actors and actresses really take it so personal? You know, because sometimes, you know, like we're all watching the news and Charlie Sheen is just going crazy.
God bless
you
him.
know,
We need to pray for him, right?
yeah, but there's reasons why people do go crazy because they are their own product. I mean, you are your product. I mean, your face, your voice, your persona, you are selling yourself in another form in a sense. So when you get rejected, it's not like it's a toaster you made. It's you.
No, it's not. And you know, and I worked from age 15 to 27. I had little jobs here and there and whatnot, but I did the damsel in distress for a long time. You know, I like to joke about that, like help, help. I was always kidnapped, and A-Team had to rescue me, or Knight Rider, or you know, whatever.
Like Mr. T?
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Yeah, I was rescued by Mr. T. And then I moved to New York because I wanted to become a serious actress. You know, I wanted to have some respect for what I was doing. But it wasn't until I was 27 and I had $8 left to my name. I'd heard so many no's. I couldn't even get an agent at that time. I mean, it was really rock bottom. And I was on my knees sobbing to God because I literally had, you know, I've been auditioning for 12 years. I literally had $8 left to my name. Didn't know what I was going to do. And I remember that the Lord spoke to me and he said, don't let anybody put out your flame. You know, I've given you this light inside, and don't let anybody put it out.
This is your creative flame, though, right? You're talking about, or what?
No,
Or
well,
your
I'm talking about my flame from God, my
Okay.
spirit, the gift He's. You know, I think we've all been given a gift. Anything I've accomplished in my life has been by the grace of God and the gifts He's given me. I try to take the claim for none of it. So if He's given me this gift and He wants to work through me, then I can't let the darkness and the evil that's out there. And I really think that, you know, obviously evil's out there, but Hollywood can be a rather evil place where people want to bring you down.
Why do you suppose there seems to be such a different sense of darkness in the creative world of filmmaking as opposed to most other places? Why does it seem darker?
I don't know. I think life's probably pretty dark everywhere, you know. I got sober when I was 23 years old, and I watched young actresses going through sobriety and whatnot, and they're in Hollywood, and people say, well, it's Hollywood that does it. Well, really, I think alcoholism and drug abuse is prevalent throughout. Everyone knows somebody that's a cousin or you know, anybody within the family that has a problem. So I think it's sort of just that Hollywood we're more aware of what's going on there. But to answer your question directly, it's an opportunity where there's so much exposure in the culture. And so the devil just loves that opportunity. So if people are vulnerable and weak and don't have the faith to back them up and give them the foundation, that's a great playing field for the devil.
Creative people, we have to put ourselves in other people's shoes, okay? And sometimes in putting yourself in someone else's shoes, you have to like sort of become someone else for a while. And it's difficult for Christians to see somebody become someone else who's like a dark character on screen. Because we say, well, how could you do that? How could you say that because you're a Christian? Well, here's a guy who's just sitting here, you know, Pastor Boyd. He lived through a pretty horrendous scenario with a shooting.
Yes.
There's a really good chance that could be made into a movie, and how they recovered that. I mean, lots of those tragedies are made into movies. Well, somebody's got to play those parts. Somebody's going to have to play the part of the woman who lost her daughters. Somebody's going to have to play the part of maybe the guy who did the shooting, maybe his girlfriend, or maybe the girl who ran up the aisle and shot him. Somebody's going to have to play the part of some dark characters and go to some dark places. How do you separate and not have that persona become part of you and keep those things separated? Is that a skill thing? Or is it a spiritual thing? At what point does it become spirit? How do you keep that separate? For those that don't know.
Well, I think for me, you know, I was trained as a method actress, sort of like Dustin Hoffman, and because I thought, who do I really love? And it was the Al Pacinos and the Dustin Hoffmans and the Jessica Langes and the Paul Newmans. And so it's method acting. So you make choices from your own life that sort of aren't exactly the same, but will trigger similar emotions. So it is hard because you have to take yourself to that vulnerable, raw place where and as I get older, it's like, oh my gosh, it's too hard on my heart. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna die. But
you feel this stuff.
Yes,
you feel it. Right?
Feel it. It's really real. So I think in order to overcome it, for me, it has to be a faith. You know, I have to turn, you know, don't let that flame be put out by anything, whether it's a part that I'm playing, and to keep a sense of reality. What I think my faith does for me is there's just a sense of purpose in my life and a sense of reality. And in Hollywood, it's so easy to lose your sense of reality. I mean, you get on a set with someone and you might meet them, and by 3 months is over, you're just entranced with the person that you're working with because you're just in 18 hours a day in this set. It's not reality. But whether I'm working through my sobriety or I'm a single mom or doing a part in Hollywood or whatever it is, I find I have to get on my knees and be grounded and say, I'm here to serve you. And, you know, it kind of drives me crazy that Academy Awards, no one ever thanks God. You know, you hear it in music. You hear it in the music industry. But I'm like, wow, you know, and that's kind of what we're talking about is this sort of...
that is interesting. They don't do that.
You don't hear it much. Because to me, the way I feel is any gift I have is from the Lord. And I get on my knees every day and say, I'm turning my will and my life over to you. And as a recovering alcoholic, I have to say that. I have to say, I have this problem only. And you know what's cool about that? Only God can fix it. It's an illness. It's an illness. It's so interesting. It's a disease
You've had so
that
many different
only
things.
God can fix.
All these different things are happening in your life. I mean, you're kind of like the sort of Renaissance. Sort of.
He's like, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, well, I got so many things.
All right, so and part of that is somehow alcoholism got in there, and
Yeah.
you've been fighting that line. That's kind of a daily thing.
Yeah.
And in order to move forward, that's not something that just doesn't show itself. It's something that you're aware of every single day. I was thinking so, right?
Well, yes. Well, you know, it's interesting about that. My great-great-grandpa J.B. wrote a letter to his sons. J.B. He tells his sons to stay away from John Barleycorn, and they didn't. And so I believe that it's interesting enough they call alcohol spirits, because there's a difference between a blackout and a pass out. When you pass out, you're just out. When you black out, you know, they think it's so funny in our culture. He didn't remember what he did yesterday. Wasn't that funny? You know, and oh, you know, wake up. Who are you? And I don't. They glamorize this in showbiz, in the movies and whatnot, and it's not funny. And to me, you know, when you have experience of a blackout, that's when the devil, when the spirit can come in and use your body to do whatever he wants. You know, and how many rapes and deaths and shootings and things have taken place when a person's been under the influence or maybe in a blackout of alcohol and drugs. So when I learned is that here's this disease, and Grandpa JB told his sons to stay away from it, right? That it's been this family cyclical thing, and I feel so blessed that I've been able to break the cycle. I got sober when I was 23, and I'll have 25 years in May. And thank you. One day at a time.
Wow.
But for God to give me the strength, and what I've learned through my healing in the process is that only God can heal me of this disease. Only God. There's no medicine for it. So it's a true example of spiritual healing of a disease, and I'm more and more fascinated with that every day.
Aside from producing Hollywood films, Devon Franklin enjoys motivating and preaching a message of faith to others. Eddie Matthews takes pleasure in encouraging and teaching today's youth through his video projects. And Janine Turner focuses her time on raising her daughter, Juliet, who she calls her joy and blessing. Featuring interviews with your favorite stars, this has been Christian Celebrity Showcase.